Can I tell you a quick parable?
Yeah.
'Cause I've got time.
Do it.
Yeah, quick parable is from Aesop. And Aesop says about this guy who's a hoarder. And he has this treasure at the bottom of his garden under a tree. And every week he digs it up, he counts it, he puts it back, right? And he does this for years. But eventually there's a thief, sees this, and during the week comes, steals the treasure, and just kind of leaves the hole empty. So the guy next week comes down, sees that there's nothing there, starts to cry and wail. And neighbours come around and go, what's wrong? And the miser says, I have this treasure. Every week I count it, and now it's been stolen. And one of the people says, well, what did you ever do with it? Did you buy things with it? Did you use it? And he says, no, I'd never use it. And then one of the neighbours picks up some stones and says, well, count those, it'll do you as much good. Right?
Yeah.
So that's Aesop's fable. Simone Weil asked the question, what does the miser lose when they lose their fortune? And she's probably thinking about Aesop's fable. Because the question we have to ask is, what did the miser lose? Because they didn't lose anything that they were using, right? They weren't spending it.
They didn't lose any power, really.
Didn't lose any power, didn't use any wealth.
Potential.
Yeah, lost potential. And potentially they lost what's called the fetish object. So a fetish object is an object that you know is not magical, but you treat it as if it is. And the typical miser is someone often who lives in poverty, they've got bad relationships with their family, all of that stuff. But as long as they have this bunch of money, that prevents them from experiencing the horror of their life. As long as they've got that thing, that treasure at the bottom of the garden, somehow they don't see all of the crap that's in their life. When they lose the fetish object, they're confronted by the poverty of their life. So in psychoanalysis, there's an idea that sometimes we have fetish objects that maybe it's a relationship with somebody, or maybe it's I had people who their son that died, and they kept the room exactly as it was. And while the room was exactly as it was, it kind of prevented them in a good way for a while experiencing the full trauma. But when they took the room apart, then all of this emotion came. But
Postpone the trauma.
Exactly. So it kind of helped for a while, but eventually they had to get rid of the fetish object in order to
deal with the trauma head on. Yeah.
So sometimes what we do in our society is we're always buying stuff and we're always getting stuff, because in a way that prevents us from looking at other areas of our lives that are not good, that are where maybe our relationships with our family or our partners are not good. And what we need to do is, if we can see that the treasures that we have are actually there as a way of preventing us from looking at what we really need to look at. Once we see that, start to fix the things in our lives that need fixed, we no longer need the treasure. Here's a terrible thing, sadly, is most of us, and I thankfully I'm not in the situation, so I feel really for most people who are, have to do jobs that they don't like, that they don't get value from. Even if they're well paid, they're alienated, as in they're giving 5 or 6 hours of their day, every day of the week, to something that doesn't give them necessarily inherent value. And so sometimes our frenetic pursuit of buying a new iPhone or the new car is a way for us to avoid confronting the fact that we're maybe doing a job that we hate, that we're alienated from what we're doing. And I think, to be honest, when I look at adverts, for example, I often feel that they're a way for us to, and I understand, it's just like that couple whose son died and they had the room exactly as it was because they couldn't bear to look at the suffering straight away. In the same way, we might be in a job that we really don't like. We may be in a situation that is really difficult. And so we think about the iPhone, we go on the computer and look at the new cars to purchase, because that prevents us from having to look at that. Nothing wrong with that, but here's the problem, is then we don't look at the thing, and then we can't change it. There's something beautiful Karl Marx said, actually, when he was talking about religion. We all know he said religion's the opium of the people. The communists. Yeah. But everyone knows that religion's the opium of the people. They know that. But he goes on to say, it's quite beautiful, actually. He says, religion is the opium of the people. He says, it's the heart of a heartless nation. It's the soul of a soulless condition. And then he says, religion is the imaginary flowers on the chains of our oppression. We must get rid of the imaginary flowers, not so that we see the chains in despair, but so that we see the chains and break them, so that we can pick living flowers. Now, I just like, it's quite a poetic thing, but what he's basically saying is, if we put it in the context of looking at the new car, the new iPhone or whatever, that's the opium of the people today.
Yeah.
The advertising is the opium of the people. It prevents us, it's the imaginary flowers and the chains of our oppression. So it prevents us from really looking at maybe the jobs that we hate and all of that. We have to get rid of the imaginary flowers, not so that we despair, but so that we can break the chains, which means maybe find a better job, maybe do something else, maybe take those difficult choices and then be able to pick living flowers.
Yeah.
Because as Anna Freud says, that in your dreams you can make the perfect omelette, you just can't eat it. Which means that we can fantasize about the perfect life that we want, and that's lovely. The only thing is we can't be in it. The omelette that we really make is never going to be as good as the omelette that we imagine, but you can eat it. And I would love to see how we can, free ourselves from the consumerism that prevents us sometimes from looking at the trauma of our lives. That's totally understandable. But so that we can look at it and maybe make some hard decisions about how to pick living flowers.
Yeah.